Caught my sister sending flirty texts to my husband of 10 years. Do I confront her? Imagine this for a second. You're sitting at home, thinking everything is perfectly fine in your life, when suddenly, you stumble upon something that shatters your entire world. Now, imagine that what you found wasn't just a random mistake or a slip-up. It was your own sister sending flirty, intimate texts to your husband of 10 years. What would you do? Would you confront her immediately, or would you keep it to yourself, trying to figure out what it all really means? That's exactly the position I found myself in, and let me tell you, I had no idea how to handle it. I've been wrestling with this decision ever since, and I'm here to tell you everything, how it started, what happened, and what I did next. It all began just like any other evening. I was relaxing at home, catching up on some work, when my husband Ryan left his phone lying around on the counter. Now, I'm not the type to snoop. I trusted him completely, and besides, we didn't have secrets. But something in the back of my mind nudged me to glance at the phone. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was just an off feeling I couldn't shake. But there it was, a message notification that I never expected to see. I looked closer, thinking it was just another one of those spam texts or group messages. But when I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. There, staring back at me, were messages from my own sister, Lily. She wasn't just casually chatting with him. No, these were flirtatious texts. And they weren't harmless either. She was calling him handsome, sending him heart emojis, and even making plans to catch up soon. In that instant, I felt a cold wave of shock and confusion rush over me. It wasn't just that she was texting him. She was flirting with him. And the worst part? Ryan was responding. He wasn't shutting it down. He wasn't asking her to stop. Instead, he was engaging with her, laughing at her jokes, complimenting her back. The messages weren't inappropriate at first glance, but the more I read, the more I realized this was no innocent exchange. Something deeper was happening. I could feel it in my gut. So now, I was faced with an impossible choice. Do I confront my husband, the man I've been with for 10 years, about what I just found? Do I approach my sister and question her about why she would do this to me? Or do I keep this all to myself, letting it eat away at me until I figure out the right thing to do? I could feel the weight of both choices, each one carrying its own set of consequences. I didn't know which path would lead to healing, and which would break everything I thought I knew. What would you do if you were me? Confront your sister, your husband, or both? And how do you even begin to unravel something like this, when it's your closest family and your partner that are involved? Ryan and I had been together for 10 years. We met in high school, and from that moment, we were inseparable. I thought our relationship was something special, built on trust, laughter, and shared dreams. Over the years, we faced challenges, just like any couple. There were misunderstandings, moments of frustration, and times when life just seemed harder than usual. But through it all, I always believed that we had a strong, solid foundation. After all, we had built our lives together from scratch. We got married, bought a house, traveled, celebrated anniversaries, and just grew as partners. He was my best friend, the person I trusted with everything. I always thought nothing could shake that bond. And for a long time I was right. Or at least, that's what I believed. We were always open with each other. At least, that's how it seemed. We talked about everything. Our hopes, our fears, our day-to-day lives. Even during the tough times, we managed to communicate, to work through our problems without letting them fester. We didn't hide things from each other. That's what made this situation so confusing and painful. We were a team. And I thought we were on the same page. Sure, we had disagreements now and then. Who doesn't? Sometimes we'd argue over silly things, like whether to take a vacation or what to have for dinner. But those were just minor bumps along the way. Nothing that ever made me doubt us. I never imagined something like this would happen. I thought we were past the point of needing to question each other's loyalty or trust. So when I found those texts, I was completely blindsided. How could I have missed something like this? Then there's my sister, Lily. She was always part of our lives, like a third member of our little family. Ryan and I would invite her over for dinner, take trips together, and celebrate holidays with her. Lily was someone I could always rely on. She was more than just my sister. She was my best friend, someone who knew me better than anyone else. She had been there for every important moment in our lives. I never once questioned her intentions, especially not with Ryan. She was like a second sister to him, always joking around, always teasing him, just like we always did. I never thought she would cross a line. So, when I saw her name pop up on Ryan's phone, I didn't even think twice. At first I assumed they were just talking about something casual. But the more I read those messages, the the more I realized this was anything but casual. It was something deeper, something that should never have happened. And that's when the doubt started creeping in. How could my sister, of all people, be flirting with my husband? How could I not have seen this coming? It all started one evening when Ryan left his phone sitting on the kitchen counter. He had gone into the other room to watch TV, and I was just finishing up some work. Normally, I wouldn't even think to go through his phone. After all, we trusted each other. But that night, something felt off. I can't explain it, but there was this little voice in my head telling me to just take a quick look. Maybe it was the quiet unease I'd been feeling lately, or maybe it was just the weird combination of curiosity and gut instinct. Either way, I gave in. I picked up his phone, unlocked it without a second thought, and opened his messages. And that's when I saw them. The texts, the messages between my husband and my sister. At first, I thought I was imagining things. I mean, how could this be happening? But no, as I read through the conversations, it became clear. These were not just simple, friendly texts. They were flirty. Lily was sending him heart emojis, calling him handsome, and even saying things like, "We should meet up sometime soon." There was one message where she even said, "Can't wait to see you again. You always make me laugh." And Ryan was responding. He wasn't shutting it down. He wasn't telling her to stop. No, he was playing along. He was laughing with her, sending smiley faces, even complimenting her back. The more I read, the more sick I felt. This wasn't just an innocent conversation. This was something more. Something deeper. I had to keep reading, hoping that I was just misinterpreting it, but no, every message confirmed my worst fear. They were flirting. I can't even describe the overwhelming surge of emotions that hit me all at once. Anger, confusion, betrayal. It felt like someone had just ripped the ground out from under me. My hands were shaking and my heart was racing. I felt sick. My sister, my own sister, was sending these kinds of messages to my husband. How could she cross that line? And why was Ryan, of all people, engaging with her like this? Didn't he know how wrong it was? Didn't he understand the boundaries? I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, scream, but I couldn't. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. As the reality of what I had found started to sink in, my mind was racing with questions. The first thing that hit me was, should I go straight to Ryan and confront him about what I had seen? Or was this something I should talk to my sister about first? I knew that if I told Ryan, it would change everything. How could he explain this away? What if he denied it? What if he tried to cover it up? And then there was Lily. What if I confronted her first? What would she say? Would she apologize, or would she try to turn it around on me? I had no idea how to approach this without making everything worse. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that either way, things would never be the same. I felt trapped in my own mind, torn between two people I loved and trusted more than anyone else. But I knew that one way or another, I had to confront someone. The question was, who? I sat there for what felt like an eternity, staring at my husband's phone, trying to figure out what to do next. Confronting Ryan seemed like the most obvious choice. He was the one I was married to, the one I had shared my life with for 10 years. Surely, I should go straight to him and ask him what was going on. But then a thought stopped me in my tracks. What if I was overreacting? What if he had a reasonable explanation for all of this? Maybe he didn't realize how much he was encouraging my sister's behavior. After all, they had been close for years. He might have just thought it was harmless, maybe even flattering, to get attention from someone he trusted. Could I be jumping to conclusions? What if he didn't even see this as a big deal, and I made everything worse by accusing him of something he hadn't meant? And then there was the fear that if I confronted him, he could get defensive, or worse, deny everything. What if he turned it around on me and made me feel guilty for snooping? The last thing I wanted was for him to think I didn't trust him, even though all the signs were pointing in the opposite direction. The thought of confronting him directly felt like opening a Pandora's box. Once it was open, I didn't know what kind of mess I'd be dealing with. Would it be worth the risk of shaking the very foundation of our marriage? I had no idea what would happen once I spoke those words out loud. On the flip side, confronting my sister felt like a betrayal. Lily had been part of my life for as long as I could remember, and now here she was, doing something that seemed completely out of character. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I went to her first, I'd be betraying the trust we had built over all these years. What if I couldn't look at her the same way again? What if everything we shared, Our inside jokes, our family moments, the memories of our childhood, would be tainted by what I knew now. Could I ever trust her again after this? I didn't know. But on the other hand, what if this was just the beginning? What if there was something bigger going on that I hadn't uncovered yet? What if she was planning something more serious? Something that could destroy my marriage? I had no proof of that, but the fear of not knowing what she was capable of haunted me. I also feared that if I confronted Lily, she might deny everything, or worse, try to twist the truth to make me look like I was imagining things. I wasn't sure if I could handle her denying it, especially when I had the proof right in front of me. Could she really lie to my face like that? And if she did, how would I react? Would I still be able to forgive her if she turned it around on me, making me seem like the unreasonable one? My heart was torn. No matter which path I chose, I felt like I was heading straight into a storm that I wasn't ready to face. As I sat there, I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. It was a feeling I couldn't shake, like a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. My mind kept running in circles, torn between two choices. If I went to Ryan first, he might react defensively. He might even get angry, accusing me of spying on him. Or worse, he might minimize it and make me feel like I was overreacting. But if I went to Lily first, it could tear apart our relationship forever. What if she denied everything? What if she tried to turn the tables on me and made me doubt myself? No matter what, I couldn't escape the feeling that once I made a move, things would never be the same. The idea of confronting either of them made me feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, with no way to know what would happen next. All I could do was brace myself for whatever came after. After an entire sleepless night, I couldn't take it anymore. The thoughts were swirling around in my head, and I just needed answers. My stomach felt like it was constantly in knots, and every time I closed my eyes, all I could think about was what I had seen on Ryan's phone. The anger, the confusion, it was all eating me up inside. I couldn't keep living in this uncertain fog. Something had to be done. I had to know the truth. So, I made the call. I called Lily and asked her to meet me. The words barely left my mouth as soon as she picked up. I could hear my own voice trembling, but I pushed through the nerves. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop, a neutral place where we could talk. But honestly, I had no idea how this conversation would go. My mind was racing with a million different scenarios, none of them good. But no matter how terrified I felt, I knew this was the only way forward. I needed to hear it from her, whatever it was. I couldn't stand this feeling of not knowing, of being in the dark any longer. When I finally sat down across from her, the first thing I did was slide my phone across the table. I showed her the messages, the heart emojis, the handsome comments, and the suggestive remarks. It wasn't easy, but I had to show her what I had seen. The room was silent for a long moment as she stared at the screen, her face changing from confusion to shock. I could see the color drain from her face. She didn't say anything at first. She just looked at the phone, and for a second, I thought maybe she'd admit everything. But then she quickly looked up at me, and her defensive walls went up. She tried to explain it away at first, saying it was just a joke, that it didn't mean anything. She said she was just being friendly, that Ryan didn't take it seriously, and that it was all innocent. But I could see it in her eyes. There was guilt there. She was lying, and I knew it. The more she talked, the more I could feel that something wasn't adding up. She kept saying it wasn't serious, that she never intended for it to go any further. But I wasn't buying it. The way she said it made it sound like she was trying to convince herself more than she was trying to convince me. I couldn't help but feel betrayed all over again. This wasn't just some random person. This was my sister. She was someone I had trusted, someone I had shared my life with. But now, it felt like everything I had built with her was crumbling right in front of me. She admitted that she had crossed a line, that she had sent those texts, but then she acted like it wasn't a big deal. It was as if she thought I should just accept her apology and move on like it was nothing. It was maddening. My emotions were all over the place. One part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand she explain how she could do this to me. But another part of me was just numb. I had always thought my sister would be the last person to hurt me like this. And yet, here we were. I had been blindsided, and now all I had was this hollow apology that didn't feel like it was enough. It felt like she was brushing it off, as if it wasn't worth the pain it was causing me. I wanted answers, real answers, not excuses. But all I was getting was her downplaying it, acting like I was overreacting. I didn't know where to go from here, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't just let this go. I couldn't pretend like everything was fine. Something had to change. And I wasn't sure if it was my sister who needed to change, or if it was the whole situation that had to be fixed. As I pressed Lily for more answers, I started to feel like I was peeling back layers of a truth I wasn't prepared for. She kept repeating that it was harmless, just some friendly banter, but I could see the cracks in her story. The way she hesitated, the way she avoided my gaze, made it clear that there was more to this than she was letting on. It wasn't just some innocent flirting. As much as I wanted to believe her, something didn't sit right with me. The more I questioned her, the more it became obvious that this wasn't just a casual thing. She wasn't just joking around. There were emotions involved. She had feelings for Ryan, and I wasn't sure how deep they ran. She admitted to being flirty, but she kept downplaying it, as if she didn't fully understand how much that hurt. She didn't just send heart emojis and call him handsome out of the blue. There was intention behind it. She was emotionally involved, even if she hadn't physically crossed a line. I kept pushing, needing to know what exactly had been going on between them. And the more I uncovered, the more I felt my heart breaking. It was like I was losing both Ryan and Lily. My sister, the one person I had always trusted, seemed to have fallen for my husband in some way. And he wasn't completely innocent either. Ryan may not have fully realized the depth of what was happening, but the more I thought about it, the more I saw how his responses to her were almost flirtatious in their own way. He might not have meant anything by it, but the fact that he engaged with her the way he did, that he never shut it down, it stung. It felt like he was giving her something he should have been giving me, and that hurt more than I could put into words. Ryan was the one person I thought I could trust the most, but now I was questioning everything. Had he been flirting back without even realizing it? Had he been aware of how much he was encouraging her? The confusion was overwhelming. Every time I tried to make sense of it, I just felt lost. I didn't know who to trust anymore, Ryan or Lily. It was like my entire world was falling apart, piece by piece. My sister, the person I thought would never hurt me, was involved with my husband, whether she meant to be or not. And Ryan, how could he not see how wrong this was? I kept thinking about how long this had been going on. How long had they been texting like this? Were there more texts I hadn't found yet? It felt like my entire life had been turned upside down in the span of one evening, and now I had no idea where to go from here. I was stuck in this limbo of heartbreak and disbelief, trying to figure out if I was overreacting or if this was a betrayal too deep to ignore. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, where everything I thought I knew about my life was just false. As I sat there staring at my phone, trying to make sense of everything, I realized I had a huge decision to make. Do I tell Ryan everything I found out? Could I really drop that bombshell on him and risk destroying our entire marriage? Would he ever look at me the same way again? And what about Lily? She was my sister, my family. Could I ever forgive her for betraying me like this? I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I kept thinking about the consequences of whatever choice I made. If I confronted Ryan, what would happen to us? Would we be able to recover, or would this be the end of a decade-long relationship? And if I confronted Lily, would that ruin our bond forever? I had no idea if I could move past this, but one thing was for sure. Things could never be the same again. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, with two paths ahead of me. And each decision felt like it could change my life in ways I couldn't even predict. Part of me was furious. How could they both do this to me? Ryan, my husband of 10 years, someone I thought I could trust completely. How could he not have seen how wrong this was? And my sister, the one person I thought I could count on no matter what. How could she cross that line with him? The anger bubbled up in me every time I thought about the texts, the heart emojis, the little flirtations. But at the same time, a small part of me, the part that still cared for them both, didn't want to jump to conclusions. What if it was just a one-time mistake? Maybe they both didn't understand the gravity of what was happening. Was I overreacting? Could I salvage the relationship? Or was it too late? I loved them both. Ryan, the man I had built a life with, and Lily, my sister, who had always been there for me. But how could I move past this? Could I even trust them again? My mind was torn in so many directions, and I just didn't know where to start. After days of thinking it over, talking to friends, and replaying everything in my head, I realized I couldn't make a rash decision. I needed to take a step back and figure out what was best for me, for my future. The last thing I wanted was to act out of anger and regret it later. But as much as I wanted to push everything aside and pretend like it didn't happen, I knew this was a turning point. My trust had been shattered, and I couldn't ignore that. I had to decide whether to confront Ryan, Lily, or both. Whatever I chose, things would change. I couldn't go back to how things were before. And maybe that was the hardest part, knowing that I couldn't simply erase what I had discovered. I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it was, and decide how to move forward from here. In the end, confronting both of them was something I couldn't avoid. The truth had to come out, no matter how much it hurt. I didn't want to live in this cloud of uncertainty any longer. I had to face them, ask the tough questions, and figure out where we all stood. But even as I prepared myself for the fallout, I couldn't help but wonder, could I rebuild my life after all of this? Could I repair my marriage with Ryan? Could I ever trust Lily again? These were the thoughts that kept me awake at night. There was no going back after what had happened. I knew that. But what I didn't know was whether it was even possible to move forward. Could we all find a way to heal, or had this betrayal done irreversible damage? It felt like my world had been turned upside down, and now I had to decide whether to pick up the pieces and try to put things back together, or walk away and start fresh. So, what do you think? If you were in my shoes, would you confront your sister first, or would you go straight to your husband? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share more stories with you.